Hello and welcome to CoderzColumn. My name is Sunny Solanki, and in today's video I'll be explaining how to create a simple dashboard using Python data visualization library Bokeh. As you can see on my screen, I already have a sample image open showing how our dashboard will look. So our dashboard will be simple, consisting of only two charts. So the first chart will be the scatter chart and the second chart will be stacked bar chart. And then we will have few widgets which will be used to modify this chart. So for scatter chart, I have two drop downs at the top. So the drop downs will be used to select X columns from our data set to use for X axis and which column to use for Y axis. And then I have one checkbox, name, color and code. So there is a categorical column in our data which will be used to color points of this chart based on the value of that column. So by default, all the points of the charts will be colored with the blue color. But as we select this checkbox, the points will be colored based on the whatever the value of that categorical column is that for that point. And for a stacked bar chart, we have a multi-select. So based on the selected columns, so these are alcohol as will be the columns of our data set. And in stacked bar chart, we will be showing the average values of this ingredient based on that categorical column. So I will explain you the code where I am loading the dataset, and I will explain the dataset in detail. So let's get started with the coding part. So as you can see on my screen, now I have a Visual Studio editor open, and I have already included a few lines of code. So the file name for our dashboard is bokeh dashboard.py, and at the beginning I have a few imports. So we'll be maintaining our dataset using pandas. So pandas is imported. Then next library is pandas bokeh. So this is a famous library which is used to create bokeh charts from pandas data frame. Using this library, we end up creating charts with this one line of code, with just one line of code. So we'll be using this library to create our chart. Then I have a load wine function imported from scikit-learn. So this function will return the dataset that we'll use for our purpose. Then I have a few other imports, like from bokeh.layouts, I have row and column. So these are the two functions which will be used to create a layout of our application. So row function is generally used to lay out widgets and all the components like widgets and charts we provide to it in a row like fashion, and column is used to lay out components in column like fashion. Then from bokeh.models, I imported a few other functions which are select, multi-choice, checkbox, button groups. So this will be used to create widgets. And then from plotting.bokeh, I imported curdoc. So curdoc in case of bokeh refers to current doc. So we can say that it refers to current HTML page. And in this HTML page, we will be adding our dashboard. Right, so those were the imports that we are going to use in our tutorial. Next is the code to load the dataset. So let me copy this code. Okay, so I already have copied this code in Jupyter Notebook. So let me show you the code over there and explain it. So as you can see, I already have copied this load wine function. Now what this function does is that it loads the wine dataset, then converts it into a pandas data frame. And then there is a column named wine type, which is a categorical column where we have three different types of wine. So as you can see, I have loaded the data set over here and displayed the first few rows of our data frame wine df. So as you can see, the column names are various ingredients used in creation of different types of wines. So alcohol, malic acid, ash, etc. are various ingredients. And the last column is wine type. So this is the only categorical column of our data set which has three values: class 0, class 1 and class 2. All other columns of our data sets are ingredients and they are continuous columns. Other than that, I have maintained a simple list named ingredients where we will have a list of ingredients. So we will be needing this list in our code. And so this was the first data frame wine df, and we'll be creating our scatter chart from this data frame wine df. Now we have created another data frame from our wine df, So what I have done over here is that I have grouped the entry based on wine type. So there are three different types of wine: class 0, 1 and 2. So entries will be grouped based on those entries. And then I have called main function. So that will average the values. So as you can see, the contents of average wine df, there are three rows: class 0, class 1 and class 2, which are our wine type. And the values over here are average value of that ingredient for that particular wine type. So for class 0, 13.74 is the average value of alcohol. 2.01 is the average value of malic acid. For class 1, 12.27 is the average value of alcohol. So this second data frame, which we have created from our original wine data frame, this one we will use to create a stacked bar chart. So that's a data set. That is our data set. So let's go back to our editor and create our first chart, which is the scatter chart. So I will create chart. I will put comment name create charts, and I will create a simple method which returns me a figure object, a bokeh figure object, which will have our scatter chart. So I will say method name as create scatter chart, and this method will take three values: x-axis values, y-axis values, and whether to color encode points of our chart or not. So by default, I will set this x-axis to alcohol. So alcohol is the first ingredient, and y-axis to malic acid. And by default, I will set color encode to false. So all the points will be of single color, which is blue. Now I'll create a variable name scatter fig, and I will say wine df dot plot bokeh. So I will call plot bokeh on it. Then I will call method name scatter. So what this will do, the call to this method scatter will create a scatter chart from the columns of wine df. So for x-axis, I will set x-axis. For y-axis, I will set y-axis, which are the parameter of our function. And then there is a parameter named category, which I will set to wine type, which is our column, if color encode is true, else I will set it to none. So this will create our chart, and let me return this from our method. So this will create our chart. So let me add labels for x and y axis. So for x axis, I will set x axis dot capitalize. For y axis, I will set y axis dot capitalize. I will set title to this dot format, and again x-axis dot capitalize and y is dot capitalize. So these are the labels and title, and then I will set figure size to 650 pixel of width and 500 pixel of height. So that's figure label title. Axis labels are set, and next I will set show figure parameter to false. So what happens that this won't show the chart, but it will return a figure object. So all right, so we are done with the changes. Let me do one more change. So I will change the font size of title to 20 and font size of labels to 12. So 12 will be the x and y axis label font size, and title font size will be 20. So here we are done with a method which creates our first chart, which is a scatter chart. So what I will do, let me show you how our scatter chart looks. So in order to do that, I need to call this CoderzDoc method, and then on that I just simply need to call method name add root, and over here I will call our scatter chart. So what this will do is that the call to scatter chart will return a scatter figure object or figure which has scatter chart, and that will be added to our current doc, which is the HTML page of our dashboard. So alright, so let's run this part of the code and see how our chart looks, or whether there is any issue with the code. So let's verify. So in order to run Bokeh dashboard, we simply need to go to shell, and we need to execute command Bokeh serve dash dash show. So dash dash show is used to open it in browser, and then I will call Bokeh dashboard.py. Right, so let me execute this line of code. Okay, so the code has executed successfully, and it has created scatter chart showing relationship between alcohol and malic acid, and it's an interactive chart, so you can play around with various various tools of this chart. Okay, so we are done with our first chart. Let's go ahead and create a second chart, which is stacked bar chart. So I will again create a method name create bar chart. Now this method will accept single argument name ingredients. So we will be creating a stacked bar chart, and I need to provide list of ingredients to use in that stacked bar chart. So by default, what I will do is that I will give it 3 ingredients, which are alcohol, malic acid, and ash. So these are the first 3 ingredients from our wine dataset. As you can see, alcohol, malic acid, and ash. These are first 3 ingredients. Okay, so now I will say bar figure. I will create a bar figure object, and over here I will use average wine df data frame. I will again say plot bokeh dot bar, and I will return this bar figure object. Now over here for x-axis I will say use wine type. For y-axis use this ingredients, whatever is provided to this method, which will generally be list of ingredients. Then there is a parameter named stacked, which needs to be set to true. If we don't set this parameter, then it will create a grouped bar chart instead of stacked bar chart. So that's done. For y label I will set to x-axis, the label will be wine type, which is fine. For y label I will set it to average ingredient. Title, let me set title over here. Title will be average ingredients per wine type, and figure size will be 500 by 500. Let's create a square figure, and let's copy this code. Font size, title, and all that will be needed. So font size title again will be 20, font size label 12, and show figure will be set to false, so that it returns a figure object. Okay, so we are done with the second chart. So let me show you by running it. So I will call this method create bar chart over here and add it to our dashboard. So let's rerun our code. I'm shutting down the previous running version and will rerun this version. So yeah, so as you can see, we have our second chart ready as well. Okay, so this is the first one, this is the second one, which has average value of 3 ingredients: alcohol, malic acid, and ash. Right, so we are done with the creation of 2 charts. Next, what we need to do is we need to create various widgets. So I will say create widgets, So for x-axis, for changing values of x-axis of scatter chart, so let me just modify comments scatter chart widgets. So I will be using a select method, select function, and it has parameter name title, which will be the label of this widget. Then there is a parameter name options. So what are the options of this drop down, which is in ingredients. So we are maintaining ingredients in the list name ingredients. And then value. So what will be the default value? So for first x-axis, I will set default value to alcohol. So that was x-axis. Next is for y-axis, for the scatter chart. Set over here, title will be y-axis, options will be again ingredients, and the value will be malic acid. Okay, so that's x and y-axis widgets or drop downs. So these two widgets we have created. Next we will create a color encode. So I will say color encode is equal to, now we'll be using this function name checkbox button group. Now this function is generally used to create a group of checkbox, but we will use it to, in our case, to create only single checkbox, because Bokeh does not have a function to create a single checkbox. So we'll be using this one. So it's a group of checkbox but with only one checkbox. So over here I will say labels to, so labels, a list of labels. So I will just say color encode. So we have only one label. If you have more than one checkbox, then you can provide it over here as a list. And then active. So active parameter is set to list of active checkbox. So in our case, we want this checkbox to be unselected by default. And as we select this checkbox values, the active will be set with the color encode list. And then there is a argument name button type, which I will set to success. So this argument generally comes from a Bootstrap. A Bootstrap is a very famous CSS library to create a front end. And when you set success over there, it creates green colored buttons. In our case, it will create a green colored checkbox. All right, so that's there. So we are done with the creation of widgets for scatter chart. Let's create a bar chart widgets. So for bar chart, we have only one widget named multi-select. So multi-choice. Again, it has the same parameter like a drop down. So I will say ingredients, and options will be ingredients, all the ingredients, and value will be three default ingredients, which in our case we will select to alcohol, malic acid, and ash. Right, so we are done with the creation of widgets. Now let's create a dashboard, layout of our dashboard, right? So now in order to create a layout of dashboard, we need to organize widgets and chart. So at the beginning of the tutorial, I explained row and column functions which are available from layout. So we'll be using them. So we will be first laying out x and y axis widgets next to each other. So that can be done by calling row function. Y axis. And now, so let me open the image. So over here, we are laying out two widgets, two drop downs next to each other. And then we are laying out our checkbox below it and chart below it. So this tree will be laid out in column like fashion. So for that, we'll be using column function. So the first argument to column function is this row call to row function, which are two widgets. Next is color encode. So after two widgets, we have a checkbox. And then I will be using this method create scatter chart, I will call it, which will return our chart. So what I will do is I will call it first chart. So over here we have laid out drop downs, then checkbox, and then our chart. So let's see how this one looks. So now I just simply need to copy this first chart over here. Okay, so let me rerun our dashboard. Okay, so I have stopped the server, and yeah, let me rerun it. Yeah, so as you can see, we have the first chart ready along with our widgets. As you can see, we can change widgets value over here. Okay, so that's there. Let's go back to code and create the same for the second chart. So for second chart, I will again call column function, and the first argument to column function will be our multi-select, and the second argument will be called to create bar chart. So what this will do is that this will create a second chart. So let's check that one as well before we move on to next code. All right, so here we have our second chart where this one is a multi-select, and below we have our chart, stack bar chart. Okay, so let's create our final dashboard. Now in order to do that, we simply need to call row function and then put their two variables over there, first chart and second chart. So first chart has all the widgets and first chart, and second chart has widgets for the second chart and the second chart, stack bar chart. And in this call curl.add we will call dashboard. So we have our final dashboard ready. So let me rerun the code. So let me bring up the server again. All right, so we have our dashboard ready, as you can see, but currently if I change the value of any widgets, it's not changing the chart. So that's the only thing we need to do next in our code. So we need to write callbacks. So callbacks are functions that will be called when the state of any widget changes. So if I change the drop down values of any widgets, then we need to call the particular callbacks of functions which will be updating the chart. So let's do that. I will say callbacks, and first of all I will create a simple callback which will update our scatter chart. So I will say update scatter chart. Now callback in Bokeh has a particular signature. So first argument is atter, second argument is old, and the third argument is new. So this is the signature. So attribute is the attribute name, old is the old value of that attribute, and new is the new value of that attribute. So old is new is the value after we change the widget. So attribute is generally value or active. So as you can see, value over here in case of drop down is set to alcohol. Now if from drop down I change the value to ash, so the new value over here will be ash, old value will be alcohol, and attribute will be set to value string. Okay, so we can use these three values to change the status of our chart, but in our case we won't be using this one, and because we'll be using this same method to update the chart, and this same method will be linked to all the three widgets of our scatter chart. Okay, so in order to update the chart when this method is called, I'll be calling a dashboard. Then dashboard, there is a attribute named children. When I call children on dashboard, so in our case dashboard is row value whatever is returned by this row function, and when I call children on it, it will return me two children, which is first chart and second chart. So I need to make changes whenever any value of drop down changes for scatter chart. I need to make changes to scatter chart. So scatter chart is available through first chart element. So I will say 0. second chat is 1 by from indexing point of view. So again, first chat is a column function. So I will again call children over here. And over here in column, the our chart is available as at the index of second index. As you can see, first one is row of 2 drop down, and so this one is the 0th, rows is 0th, and color encode is first, and create scatter chart is on second index. So I will say second. So what we will do over here is that we are setting the value of our scatter chart. Okay, so I will call a function create scatter chart. So this will return of scatter figure object as we discussed earlier, and we simply need to provide it argument. So I will say x-axis dot value. What this will do is that it will retrieve the current value of x-axis drop down. Second will be y-axis dot value, and third will be color encode dot active. Okay, so basically what we have done over here is that we went down the hierarchy and replaced the existing scatter chart with the new scatter chart which we created over here. So now we have a callback ready, but we need to link this callback to widgets. So when the widget value changes, it knows which callback to call. So I will say x-axis, and there is a method name on change, which is a method event method. So I will say value. So for x-axis widget, whenever value changes, which is by default it's alcohol, but let's say you change it to ash from drop down, then call this method update scatter chart. Okay, same we will do for y-axis, and same we will do for color encode. And in case of color encode, the attribute is active, so keep that in mind. Okay, so we have our okay, so now we have linked created a callback and linked it with our widgets. So let's run our dashboard and test whether our code is working fine or not. So I will bring down the existing running server. Let's bring up the new one. Okay, so let me change the value. Okay, so as I change the values, it's updating chat. Okay, and as I selected a checkbox, it's coloring the points based on wine type. Let me unselect it, and flavonoids. Yeah, so as you can see, our widgets are properly linked with the charts, and as we change the values of widgets, we change the state of those widgets, the changes are getting reflected in chat. So we are done with our first chart. Now we need to handle callbacks for our second chart, which is a stacked bar chart. So over here I will write a simple callback named update bar chart. Again, it has signature, header, old and new. Over here I will use the same strategy. So let me just copy the code. So dashboard, and then children, this time we will go to second chart, so it will be 1 because it's at index 1, and children, so in second chart our bar chart is kept at index 1, multi-select at 0 and bar chart at 1. So over here I will say 1, and instead of create a scatter chart I will call create bar chart, and it has only one argument, which is list of ingredients. And list of ingredients I will say from multi-select dot value. So by default multi-select has 3 ingredients: alcohol, malic acid and ash, but as we change various values from multi-select, the value parameter or value attribute will be updated. So we have created a callback. Let's link it with our multi-select widget. I will say on change, and whenever value attribute change, call update bar chart callback. All right, so we are done with our second one as well. So let's verify whether it's working fine or not. So let me open my shell and stop the previous running server. Let's restart the server. Okay, so let me remove this one. Okay, malic acid is gone. Let me add flavonoids. Okay, let me add hue. All right, so I think we are done. And yeah, so it seems to be working fine as I am adding the values to this multi-select. It's updating the chart properly, and this one is the stacked bar chart. So x-axis is class 0, class 1, class 2, which is wine type, and y-axis is average ingredients. So yeah, that's it for today's tutorial. As you can see, it is that easy to create a dashboard using Bokeh. We are able to create a dashboard in less than 75 lines of code. So yeah, if you have any doubts or any question about this dashboard, then please feel free to let me know in the comments section. And if you liked our video and if you feel that you learned something new today, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, and see you next time.